Welcome back to my channel. This week we are actually going to start the bonus room project. I showed the plans for it a while ago, but I feel like I really need to pump myself up to actually start a project these days, just because it takes a lot out of me, and I feel like if everything's not lined up, the project really drags on and people lose interest. So hopefully I've got everything ready to go. Sometimes I take on projects with no business of taking on said project, and that's exactly what I've done today. As you can see, should not be doing a project today. Let me show you what I've done. So if you remember, above this was some cracked plaster, and my dad told me what I needed, and I bought it, and I watched 2 videos, and here we are. So, I mean, I don't know how many people watching this have plaster, but I bought plaster washers, and I already had some drywall screws, and I have put them up. I really don't understand how this is going to look okay when covered, but I think I have flattened it so that basically my worry was when I rolled over it with a roller that it would crack even more, and then people kept pushing on it as I talked about it, and led me to feel like I needed to do something about it. So I think it feels more secure now. I'll maybe put a few more in. I mean, I watched 2 different videos and 2 different people did it different ways. So essentially what I did is I put the drywall screw in the center of the washer and found some spots that I felt like it needed it, and used my drill driver to put it in. And that's where we're at. So it's a little more secure, but they flatten when you put the screw in it, but I just don't understand how plaster is going to make the whole situation flat. It's looking scary, but I mean, if I didn't do this right, you'll at least learn from me, so there's that. I think I need to pull the sofa out of the way, though. I don't know. Maybe I'll just take the cushions off. It's probably a good idea. I mean, no, it's not a good idea. I should move the whole thing, but anyways, this is what we're doing today. I've covered it in some drywall compound. It's not plaster, but I think that's fine. I think it's going to take many coats. So this is number 1, but I can already tell that it doesn't look as ripply as it did before. So I feel like it's doing its job. But as I was covering it, I was thinking to myself, well, why do you actually need these plaster washers? Why couldn't you just put drywall screws in? And I don't know the answer to that. So that's something I should look up. But in any case, it's doing its job. So probably a few more coats of this once it's dried, and then we can sand it out. So here's where we're at with the bonus room. You can see I started to repair the plaster, but I need to finish that off, and that's why things are just kind of a mess. But in order to sand it, I've got to move some of this stuff, and there's not a lot of space up here. So I'm going to try and move some stuff downstairs, some into my office, which is a little bit annoying. So I can sand the plaster, paint, and then I still want to shiplap that wall to cover the hole in the wall. I did consider just completely drywalling it, but I think that the shiplap will actually look fine from the other side and maybe just look like a little niche in the wall to put, I don't know, a piece of art. Not really sure, but I felt like shiplap was at least something I could remove if we really hated it. So that is what I'm thinking of. I just gotta clear all of this out. I cleaned out the room as much as I think I need to. I'm not gonna move that. That's just too much to do. And then I put an old bed sheet over this because I just can't move it on my own without damaging the floor. So I think that's the best plan of action. But it's looking so nice and bright in here. I honestly feel a little bit bad that I'm gonna paint the walls. Not that they're gonna be super dark, but still. If you guys were here for the office wardrobe project, I had such a hard time picking a sagey green color because when you're looking at these look green, right? And then when you put them up on the wall, they look gray all of a sudden. It's just this lighting in this room. I don't really understand it. So I'm having a bit of a hard time. And I decided I'm gonna take some of the wardrobe paint and paint it on the wall just as an idea. See how that looks. I painted some October mist on a few of the walls, and when it first went on, I thought it looked amazing and it was gonna be perfect. But when it dried a lot darker, so I don't think that's gonna work. But I have a better idea, I think, and maybe an idea of what I might get. I can understand everyone's pain with picking paint colors, and I think this is why I like to keep things simple and have all of my rooms white, because this is awful. Look at all the different paint samples I have tried, and I don't like any of them. I'll put a picture on the screen to remind you of what I'm trying to do, and look at how awful these look. The one in my inspo photo is this color. That doesn't look anything like it. So I picked up this paint sample, which I think is closer, and I might just wing it, which I know is not a good idea, but well, we can waste my time and energy and money repainting it if we really have to. Also, this color looks so bright green in the fluorescent lighting of the hardware store. Here it is in daylight. I mean, it's pretty close. I just finished sanding, and right before that, I went to the paint store and bought a gallon of this top one, which I hadn't even tested on the walls, but I think it's perfect. It's even lighter in person. It's just showing dark on the camera. So I'm just gonna go for it. And the patching of the ceiling went pretty well. This big line's showing up on camera, which isn't super noticeable in person. It's not even something that I touched, but something to do with the plaster, of course. Just a wild Friday night in Home Depot. It's Saturday and I'm gearing up for a full work day. We had a little bit of a slow start to the morning, but I have got a carload full of Shiplap and then the stuff to do the reclaimed mirror wall. So I'm gonna quickly move some things out of here, show you what's going on in here, and then we'll get started. Here's what we're working with. So this is a wall I'm gonna shiplap. I didn't want to drywall this hole, number one. I can't reach from the other side. And I'm just nervous that it will make things a lot darker. And what if I needed to fix it? I didn't want to mess things up if I didn't like it in the future. There are the mirrors from IKEA. I also bought the materials to do this wall. I'm gonna take priority over this today. I would love to get to this, but I just don't know how much time it's gonna take. Just because these I need to get out the saw for, and this I could technically do by miter box. And then I'm gonna have to paint it. So that is the first task. And then I also gotta clean all of this out so that I can work, and I will probably just move it over here because that is just the way it's gonna work. And I broke this TV the other day. If you guys were here last fall, I was volunteering with Habitat Restore, and I got this TV for 20 bucks, so it's really not the end of the world. But when I was watching it and working out the other day, there was like a light shining across the top, so then I like tried to put it back into place and it cracked, and there's like a huge mark here, so that's fun. Oops, luckily I was gonna put a different TV here anyways, and then I need to put this away. But I wanted to watch some home videos the other week, so I borrowed the VCR from the cottage. So yeah. I just ran up the stairs. I've been running back and forth from the basement to the third floor. But what I want to show you is, number one, I mean, this is just old beat up baseboard, but here's a piece of old shiplap that I just had laying around to show you this. So you can see how this overlaps the baseboard. And I saw someone post this on Instagram like forever ago. If you take a piece of cord around and you place it on the wall like that, it looks like a continuation of the baseboard when you paint it, and then the shiplap can sit on top. Sorry, I gotta be creative so I can video. So then you can see right here, it creates a ledge and this doesn't stick out further. So I've got to do that. And I was thinking it was just straight across, but because of this, I've got to go up, across, down, and across again, which is frustrating. I wanted to show you how Shiplap works. I have a few offcuts here which are easier to show you, so you can see the two different sides that you've got. You've got one that goes over, one that goes under, and they're like puzzle pieces. So there's this little groove along the underside here, and when you push it together like this, kind of snaps together. And then I use the brad nailer to just hold it into the wall. Sometimes you need to give it a little bit of a tap just to make sure that it's even all the way up, because when you've got the long shiplap board, sometimes it's out at one end or the other. To install it, I used my Ryobi brad nailer. I love this. It's one of my favorite tools. When I first started DIYing, I used my father-in-law's, but I got my own a few months back, and it is so handy. You don't need a compressor. It just takes one of the Ryobi batteries in the bottom. And that is how I nailed all of these boards in. Once you're finished installing the shiplap, you're gonna wanna use a little bit of wood filler to fill all of the holes. So you can see that little hole I filled, just took a little dab of this, wiped down with my finger. When it dried, I sanded it. And then the next thing we're gonna do is fill any gaps with caulking. This is the type that I like to use for caulking for this type of project. I'm just sitting down, but I wanted to show you where we finished off yesterday. So I got all the nail holes filled. I used caulking, and it looks pretty good. And just because people on Instagram were confused about the hole in the wall, it was just like an opening, I'm guessing, to let some light into this stairwell. This is a stairwell to our 3rd floor. My dream would be to wallpaper it, but you can see it's very, very tall, and I do not know how to accomplish that. So it is a project for another day. But this little window niche now just has shiplap on the back of it. I need to paint it again, and then I can style it with a vase and some branches, a picture or something. I think it works for now. It's not a very exciting stairwell to begin with. So yeah, today I'm hoping to paint, and if I inserted the time lapse, you probably saw that I painted the grooves as I went because they're really hard to get a paintbrush in there. Here's this wall. There's a few touch-ups I need to do, but overall it's looking really good. I want to eventually replace the doorknob. Don't know if you can hear the cats. They are running around. And then the window also looks really good. I need to put the hardware back on, even though it doesn't work. The window doesn't open, so it's just for show. And then I just started working on the reclaimed window mirror wall, which will have to be in next week's video because I haven't started it other than spray painting. I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen those videos where people have old hardware that's been painted and they try to strip off the paint and then it looks amazing. So I have this old window latch and pull in here. So I am planning to try and strip that off. I've read there's a million different ways to do this, but I've got the hardware in here and I've put some vinegar already, but I'm gonna put a little bit more so that it's completely covered. And then I'm gonna bring it to a boil. It is boiling. It didn't take very long, and you can already see that the paint is lifting off at that back piece. I just tried, and there's already paint that was coming off. I'm just gonna take it out and put it onto here. And then I grabbed an old toothbrush. I'm gonna put in some gloves and see if I can scrub some of that away. Sorry for the mess. I wanted to show you what I'm using for the reclaimed mirror wall. So I've got all of those IKEA mirrors that I will link for you in the description box. And then I have this wider trim, which will be the outside of the mirror. I've got 4 of those. And then these half moon trim, which will be on the inside of the mirror, in between the mirrors, running vertically and horizontally. And I think I got 6 of those. I don't think I need 6, but I just didn't want to be without. I'm just in the kitchen before I go outside with all of this, but I wanted to show you the paint that I got. So this is Rust-Oleum, Forged Hammered, Burnished Amber, and I thought it kind of had the reclaimed look I was going for, and then I think I'm gonna do Rub and Buff or something in certain spots to give it a really aged look. Here's a better look at the texture that the spray paint gave. See the little dots? It's supposed to look kind of like metal. Worked really well in these pieces. I'm not convinced about the side pieces, but I think we can work with it. Just about to start this reclaimed mirror wall. I'll pop up the inspo on the screen. I did a lot of different ideas on sizing because there's no way I could get a mirror as big as this wall up here. It's just not possible. So that's why I've got all the little IKEA mirrors plus these pieces. So I had kind of a general idea of whether or not it was gonna fit. And I think this way, it's gonna be totally fine. This way is gonna be very, very tight. I just did a calculation. I added together all of the mirrors for like the height. I think there's gonna be 4 up and 4 across, plus the borders and the in-between pieces. And it's gonna be close. So I think when I'm doing this bottom piece, I'm gonna have to rest it right on this baseboard, which is fine. I don't really think it matters. These mirrors came with mounting strips, which supposedly are good enough to hold it up. So that's what I'm gonna do. So this thing is gonna be pretty removable. So I guess you put 1 in each corner and 1 in the middle on the back of this. So that's what the plan is. The mirrors are all hung up on the wall. I don't know if they were all like perfectly straight. I mean, they must be, but they didn't perfectly line up. I mean, it's good enough. I don't think it's noticeable, especially once I put the trim on. And you'll notice in the time lapse, I had the trim on the bottom and the side edge, just to kind of help me. But I took them off and now I'll properly cut them. And then the the half moons will be going over the seams. I actually kind of like them. It kind of looks like leaded glass almost, but because they didn't perfectly line up, I can't leave it like that. But it is looking good so far. You'll notice the wonkiness of the level here and at the top. And I ultimately decided it was best if it lined up with this. And I'm hoping that when the treadmill is back up, you just won't notice down there. And I don't know that you'll notice up there as well. Just this house is old and wonky, and that's just the way it is. So I was thinking, honestly, if I had more of the half moons, I'd maybe prefer to the outer trim and the window grid with the half moons, but because I already have the other trim, I'm gonna put it up, I think, just with double-sided mounting tape, and we'll see how it looks. if I regret the decision, I can always take it down and switch it out. It's not the end of the world. That's how I intended it to be, so I think I should just do it. So yeah, that is where I'm at. I'm gonna do the outer trim first. So I am going to do a angled like corner, like a mitered corner. I'm gonna use my miter box and just cut that on an angle so that the two pieces perfectly line up with each other. And then once the perimeter is installed, I'll start working on the window grids. I didn't time lapse it, but I got the frame on. It was pretty easy. I did one piece at a time. Well, not actually two pieces, because I wanted to make sure that the joints were perfect. So I attached the bottom nails, like where the corner is, to make sure that the angle was perfect. And I just put in 2 nails at a time until they were all in, and then I added extra just for extra support. And it is looking good. So now I'm gonna start working on the window grid parts. When I do the window grids, I am gonna use big continuous strips for the up and down, and then the side to side are gonna be little cuts that fit in between those pieces, and I'll have to use some sort of wood filler. But this is supposed to be like an old reclaimed mirror, so I don't think anything has to be perfect. Pretty late, but I wanted to show you it's looking so good. So where these pieces lined up with these, because I didn't do any special cuts or coping, because like I said, I want it to look reclaimed and old, these would have been made of metal and probably welded. So to get that kind of look, I used wood filler, and I just kind of pressed it in and smoothed it out to add those joints. And then I'm gonna put some paint over top of it, and then I'm also gonna add some little bits of gold and silver paint to give it the more three-dimensional look of the inspiration one that I am going off of. Here is a wide angle lens look at the mirror today. So I will quickly show you how the wood filler dried, and then I brought up some different paints. So I might actually try covering this with silver first and then try to use spray paint to, I don't know, cover it again. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do, but I'd prefer not to have to spray the spray paint and see if I can brush it on somehow. Layered some silver paint over top of those joints. Honestly, this was here in our house when we moved in, a silver one and a gold one, so can't link it for you, but that is what I used. And then I'm gonna try to do a little bit of the spray paint somehow, maybe a little rub and buff, play around with it, see where we get to. I decided I really loved these cross joints, and the reason why I think they work so well is because I did put the wood filler and then layered the different colors on, but I wasn't loving the side joints or the corners, so I added wood filler on to those so that I can repeat exactly what I did on the cross parts, but it's looking really good. I think that she's finished. I'm gonna show you the details up a little closer because with the wide zoom you definitely can't see. So you can see the joints. I haven't cleaned the mirror yet just because I literally finished with the paint not too long ago. So I made all of the joints look like they were welded. I personally think it looks pretty amazing. I think it looks real, in my opinion, at least. So I'm really happy with that. And a friend had messaged me saying that she used these mirrors before and that when you put a bunch of them together, they can be a little bit like funhouse, but I don't find that to be the case. So I'm happy about that. They felt like legitimate mirrors when I was working with them rather than plastic. So I'm glad I picked the IKEA ones over the Amazon ones, because the Amazon ones did have that note in the reviews saying that they were all wiggly when you put them together. So to get this, I ended up using a silver paint that honestly was like very silver. I did try to dull it out a little bit, it's very old, and like used a paper towel to wipe it. And then the rub and buff that I used, I think was antique gold. I don't know if this is what I would have used if I had the time to order the right product. I think that there's a color that they sell that's closer to this color than gold, but I did like kind of rub it out with a paper towel. And then I also just tried to lightly spread it throughout the mirror so that it kind of carried, if that makes sense. I think this mirror turned out really great. I love the little welded joints that I ended up putting in and just the color variation. I think I mentioned to you that there's a rub and buff color that probably would have been a little bit better, but this was just a little bit quicker to use what I had, and I really think it turned out great. I need to get some window cleaner up here to clean up the glass. But once I style all of this, it's gonna look amazing. I'm so happy I kind of went with my gut and did this. And because this door behind me will eventually lead to a deck, that's why I leave this kind of floor space cleared. And it's perfect to do workouts on the floor here. I've got my treadmill. In case you're concerned and you weren't here before, I definitely don't hit my head. We're not tall people in this house. And the treadmill does go forward a little bit more. It's just I keep moving it around just to work around it. But yeah, I think this lets in a lot of light and makes the space feel a lot bigger, and it just looks good. I just wanted to wrap up this video. There will definitely be a part 2 because there's still lots of things to do, but I have finished the more physical elements in the space and the other parts are decorative. So let me quickly pop the camera out so I can show you where we're at. Everything I mainly worked on this video is in one shot. I think the mirror wall and the shiplap turned out great. I do like the paint color now. I think it's gonna look even better when everything is up on the wall. You can see I pushed everything over to the side so I can get a picture. And then last night I just quickly hung some curtains up. But it's looking really great, and I think it's gonna be even better once the rug comes, the art, and all of that. I hope you enjoyed watching this whole thing come to life. I do really love how this turned out. Obviously, with the IKEA hack, I had no idea what it was gonna look like until it was finished, but I think the whole thing looks great, so hopefully you enjoyed following along in that process. If you're still not subscribed, I would really appreciate if you did, and then you won't miss part 2 where I share the reveal and all of the decor and that whole process. If you are subscribed, I will have a video coming out later this week because obviously a bunch of other things happened in between this project, but I'm trying to keep the project videos to the project so that people who are only here for that can enjoy it. But I had a few shopping hauls and other things like that that I want to share with you. So make sure you come back for that. Have a great week, guys. Bye.